All right, welcome to Postgame Live, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and Ford Trucks, official truck of the NFL. You see it there. The Patriots lose their final game of the season. Week 18, they lose to the Dolphins, 33-24. That means the Dolphins sweep the season series, and it means the Patriots are headed to the playoffs, but you're feeling a little shaky about them. We got the staff here. We got the crew. We got Phil Perry. We got Tommy Curran. I'm Michael Holley. Matt Cassel and Ted Johnson will join us in just a bit. Phil, tell us, just your thoughts off the top of this game, and then we'll get to the playoff scenarios in a second. But this game, what does it leave you with?
I think feeling shaky is putting it lightly. I mean, that was about as bad as it could have gone when it comes to the quarterback play, when it comes to the slow starts, which we have seen plague them over the course of the year now, when it comes to not being able to stop an offense that really is sort of a high school offense, Tom. It's all RPOs and it's run game, and they're not very good, and the Patriots defense didn't show up either. We saw penalties on top of penalties, mistakes across the board, and they couldn't get them fixed. This is an alarming performance.
It really is. They've lost 3 of their final 4 games. It's a tough close to a season. Reminds me a lot of the 2019 season when they staggered to the finish. And the difference, I thought, between this team and that team was that team smelled like a fraud most of the year because it was compiling an 8-0 record. When this team here got itself to the number 1 seed in the AFC, I thought they were genuine. I thought they were real. They beat the Buffalo Bills in the fashion they did, which showed that they had physicality. But then the meltdown started and the lack of attention, and it's just seeped over. Mac Jones is now playing more like a rookie than he was at the start of the season. And I don't know whether it's a rookie wall. We can ask Matt Cassel about that for the 37th time, but I think there's more smoking gun proof of that. And you have to have a real concern about where they're headed right now because of the nature of the mistakes.
Phil said it was an alarming performance. Tommy Curran, you said at halftime that it was the worst half you saw from Mac Jones all season long. And yes, I agree with you. I'm going to co-sign. I'm going to retweet it. And even going into the third quarter and fourth quarter, he did some things. He said, well, what are you doing? Now, late in the fourth quarter, he was able to get it going and put them in contention for a victory, a possible victory, but not an encouraging performance from Mac Jones. Matt Cassel, I'm wondering, what you saw from Mac Jones the entire game and how you would grade this, especially given the stakes for the Patriots.
Right. It was a disappointing performance. You wanted him to come out and play consistently, play effectively, and he wasn't able to do that, particularly early in the game. Throughout that first half, it was an awful first half. He looked unsettled. He threw the pick 6 early. He had one really good throw, I'd say, on the crossing route to Hunter Henry in the first half. In the second half, he took a sack. They had a quarterback center fumble exchange, which never happens. And I know they changed the center and all that, but at the end of the day, he's obviously got to play better. He can't throw into coverage. He can't force balls. He's got to see coverage better. And throughout the course of the year, look, he has done that. But it wasn't until the fourth quarter where he actually made some plays, right? He hit Jacoby Myers on the fade route. He actually was able to hit Hunter Henry on the corner route and do that. But again, you can't feel good about your performance going into the playoffs when you perform that way and let the team down.
All right, this team had a 7-game winning streak. At one point, we were talking about a Tampa, New England Super Bowl, Belichick versus Brady. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They will not be the number 1 seed going into the playoffs. We'll figure out where they're going to play after Sunday Night Football. This is very simple. A game here on NBC 10, Chargers versus the Raiders. If the Chargers win this game, the Patriots will go on the road to Cincinnati, as my grandmother used to say, and take on the Bengals. If the Raiders win, they will go to Buffalo and they'll be the 6th seed. They'll go to Buffalo, take on the 3 seed, the Bills, for the 3rd time this year. So it's either going to be the Bengals or the Bills.
I want to hear Cincinnati from you all week long.
Cincinnati.
To me, it's funny because coming out of this game, Phil, I have such an aftertaste of it really doesn't matter who. I felt going into this game, the Patriots coming off a 40-point win had to continue to sharpen their swords for the playoffs. And they instead left them home. And as a result, I can't really, Bills, Bengals, whatever, whoever's across from you, you got to get your own stuff right. One interesting thing was to look at this game, and the Patriots in the opener fumbled at the Miami 11 with 3:30 left. They were down 17-16. They needed to stop Tua Tagovailoa. Not a great quarterback. Couldn't do it then. Same situation, down 3 today. Needed to stop him at his own 25 with about 3 minutes left. Couldn't do it.
That was one play call that I think we could look back on and say, did they have the right call? Did they have the right play dialed up for that particular situation? Because they're in man-to-man defense, which we know they love to do. But when you're in man-to-man defense, you don't have your eyes on the quarterback. Tua was able to scramble to the outside, the long scramble late in that game. So I think that's one call that we can look at. But, Tom, I think you're right. The worst performances that this team has put together this year has been not because they've just been beaten down by overwhelmingly more talented teams. They've been killing themselves. Happened in Indy. Happened today. And so Tom, I think, is right. It might not matter who they play because when they play like this, they're not beating anybody.
Cassel, do you see it the same way, whether it's the Bills or the Bengals? Do you think the way the Patriots are playing, it really doesn't matter? Or is there a matchup that you say, okay, that's a pretty good deal for the Patriots, especially, let's say, if it is the Bengals, they haven't been in the playoffs, they haven't won a playoff game in over 30 years.
Well, they won't beat anybody if they go out and play the way that they did today. And a lot of the stuff that we've talked about where this team has struggled, it was the defense and the run game. Once again, they rushed for 195 yards. The Miami Dolphins were almost 50% on third down. There was 8 penalties for 75 yards, some big penalties on the defensive side of the ball. The pass interference in the end zone by Jalen Mills, covering up the center by Lawrence Guy on a punt where you're going to get the ball back, and now they get the ball and continue to, and they extended that drive and were able to go down and kick a field goal. The inconsistency in the passing game, the turnovers, there was a number of different issues in this game. And if they go out and play that way and lay an egg versus any of these teams, they'll get blown out of the stadium. So the fact is, they have to really come together this week, figure out how they're going to fix some of these problems, because if they don't do that, then again, like I said before, they'll be done, and one of these other teams will be moving on.
And officially, the Bills have beaten the Jets. The Jets had like 80 yards for the entire game, yet they were competitive up until the fourth quarter. So the Bills are officially division champs. The Patriots are just waiting the outcome for this Chargers-Raiders game on NBC 10, Sunday Night Football. Cassel, stay right there, because I want to ask you about the wall that the Patriots have hit here down the stretch. You see there, they lose for the third time in the last 4 games, but it's not just losing the games. They've been losing these games. They've been getting off to incredibly slow starts, just underwhelming starts. What is it? Is it the wall is it Mac? Is it the team just being fatigued, the 17-game season? If you had to put your finger on one or two things, what would those things be?
Well, you know, it's everybody collectively. You can't point your finger at any one individual. Now, a lot of people are showcasing this, especially the quarterback position. When they don't play well, everybody notices, but it's around the board. It's the same thing when Kendrick Bourne misses the signals. It's a blitz zero look. You immediately saw the alert by Mac Jones, and he doesn't get the signal. He runs the wrong route, and now they all look like fools out there. So, again, it's everybody. It's the defensive side of the ball, not making those penalties, getting the defensive stop, bearing down the run game. And you guys just talked about the third down scramble by Tua that ended up getting the first down. Well, guess who's in right there to make a play is Van Noy. He's a free runner right there, and he makes one move and runs right by him. He's got to make that play in the backfield. So, again, it's everybody across the board, and I'm not going to just sit here and say it's one individual. It's Mac Jones. He's got to play better, and everything else will be fixed. It'll help, but again, everybody's got to look themselves in the mirror right now and say, hey, what can I do better? How can I play better and execute whatever I'm being asked to and know my role so that we can win ball games?
To me, what's wild about it is you just kind of went through a litany of different errors from different people. Some of them are physical, like the Van Noy mistake. Some of them are mental, as in the Kendrick Bourne Jacoby Myers short circuit. There's a Mac Jones short circuit on the pick 6 at the beginning that Matt pointed out at the beginning. That pick 6 should be on Mac Jones because it was zone. You look at the fumble. I mean, that's just mechanical things. You look at lining up over the center. That's a coaching thing. It shouldn't be. I've never seen someone since 2013 when they changed the rule line up over the center. I mean, but how does he not know that?
Right.
It's just vacant when you look at that camera angle. So all of these things. Why are they gagging now, Phil? Because that's what's going. The team is gagging on things.
I still can't get over. I still just can't get over the starts because to me that should be something that you can hone in on. Say, guys, we're not going to be this team anymore. We're going to have energy. We're going to be focused. And we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot consistently in the first and second quarters. And they can't help themselves. And I will put it at the feet of Mac Jones. I mean, you get the credit when everything's going well.
Right.
You have to take some credit, rookie or not, on this whole deal, especially today. First third down of the game, first drive of the game, you throw it right to the other team. 7 points going the other way. I mean, right then and there, you're putting yourselves in the hole that you know you can't come out of. This has to be a defense, run the ball, stay ahead on the scoreboard type of team for them to win. you're putting your own club behind the 8 ball. You're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, Mac Jones. I put it at his feet today if I had to pick one guy.
Defense, run the ball, strong coaching. And usually when we talk about strong coaching, we stay with Bill Belichick. He gets the bulk of the credit. The team hasn't been ready to play 3 times in the last 4 weeks. Just haven't been ready at the beginning. And when's the last time, you guys, where you could say about the New England Patriots, their special teams is a weakness? Like, Jake Bailey has had 3 punts blocked this year. And today, as Curran pointed out, I mean, it's such a basic thing. You can't Lawrence Guy lines up over the center, tried to correct it at the last minute, but the flag was already in the air. Special teams are a weakness for the Patriots. Slow starts are becoming a hallmark for them as well.
I want to reel through a little situational football, too. It was 3rd and 10 when the Patriots bungled their situation at about the Bills' 49 in the first half, Matt.
Yep.
Bills' 49.
Dolphins.
Their own 49 going in on the Dolphins. They had the miscommunication. They bring in the punt team. They punt it into the end zone. I mean, that's that complementary football that usually excels. You look at Devin McCourty misses an interception. You have the next play when Brandon Bolden on it, kind of a BS call. They draw a flag, and then there's an extended drive after that. They can't get off the field. It's a 15-play drive. It's these things that are compounding, these situational things that in the one game I look at this year where the Patriots played like you hoped a Patriots team under Bill Belichick would, the Chargers game, they bailed each other out when the other units weren't doing well. And now we have units compounding errors, it seems.
And think about it. If you get one less error in those types of situations, whether it's Lawrence Guy lines up where he's supposed to, or Devin McCourty catches that pick, and you're not allowing these extended, you're essentially giving them additional possessions. If just one of those goes away, it ends up being what was basically a one-possession game. That could be the difference in the game. That's how bad this Dolphins team is, in my opinion, that you could keep it close despite all those errors, but you had so many, you couldn't overcome them.
There have been many playoff situations, many playoff situations for the Patriots lately where they've come up short. If you look at coming off of bye against Indianapolis and going down 20-0, I'd say the Bills at Gillette Stadium. You got them. You already got a victory over them in Orchard Park. All you got to do is just squeak out a win, and they weren't ready to play then. And then you lose to the Dolphins. You get swept by the Dolphins. So you have to. You come up with a win today, you really improve you feel good. And maybe you don't improve your seeding, but psychologically, Cassel, you're in a better position. I mean, how do you explain it, though? How do you explain the Patriots right now just kind of getting along, but not really making an impact?
Well, there's no way to truly explain it because you know that they've talked about in the meetings. You go in, you get your keys to victory, right? Offensively, defensively, special teams, and they're lined up, right? We've got to run the ball. We can't turn the ball over. We've got to be effective in third down, whatever the case might be on both sides of the ball, and they're not executing that. And that starts to permeate throughout the building. And again, it comes down to confidence. And this game, like we said, needed to be a confidence builder. It needed to give them momentum going into the playoffs. And right now they have to go in, and I don't know if they'll watch the film or they'll just move right on because sometimes watching the film, it just will sting. And I know that they have to make corrections, but at the end of the day, you don't want everybody coming in on Wednesday reminded of this performance. Instead, you're trying to move forward. So as quickly as they can, they'll make corrections and move forward. But again, it's consistently bad play. And I can't sit here and tell you, oh, well, if they just did this, then they're going to be much better. It's a collection of errors that they have to fix if they're going to win a ball game when it comes to the playoffs next week.
When we look at these seasons, so often after a period of time, we look back and we say, okay, well, that whole season was like a book, and there's different turns in the chapters. If you look at the Patriots season after they lost to the Cowboys, they beat the Jets 54-13. They beat the Chargers 27-24. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. They beat a beat-up Panthers team 24-6. They're feeling really good. Mac Jones plays great. They beat Cleveland 45-7. They blank Atlanta 25-0. Diminished Atlanta, but that's still good. Tennessee, it's another good team. Yep. Patriots take care of them 36-13. They're missing players. Well, big deal. Now you got the big game. It's 14. It's against Buffalo. It's in the rain. Are you tough? Yeah, we're tough. We will win that thing 14-10. We're so good we stepped on their chest. Then they have their bye week. And the weirdest thing about this season, the book, is that bye week undid them.
Yeah.
Mac Jones's comment that we were feeling sorry for ourselves somehow enters into me a mentality or suggests a mentality that this team had that said, we got hosed here. And they came out and they lost to Indy in the fashion they did, and they lost to Buffalo in the fashion they did. They beat up on the Jaguars, and then they just lost to Miami in the fashion they did. How could their bye week undo them?
I think they also thought after that Bills game, I think they thought they were something that they really weren't.
Because all those results.
We are the big, bad team in the AFC, Matt. And when you look at it, though, they had beaten a lot of kind of beaten up teams, and they still are who they are, meaning their margin for error is incredibly slim. They're not an explosive offense. Ooh. They're not an overwhelmingly talented team, really, on either side of the ball. And so when you have mistakes, Matt, like this, you can't overcome them because that margin is just too small.
Right. And when you look at that schedule, those teams that you just named, the teams that they've really struggled against and lost. Look, Tampa Bay is a playoff caliber team. They lost to them, and it was a close game. Dallas game, they lost to them. Playoff caliber team. Got blown out by New Orleans, really, if you think about it. And then the Colts beat them. The Bills beat them on a normal day. So, again, you're talking about the playoff caliber teams they struggled against. When you look at the teams that are beat up and the Cleveland Browns of the world, and maybe the Chargers were the best victory of the year, in my opinion, because that's a playoff caliber team that has a great quarterback, good weapons on the outside. But when you're talking about a competitive advantage, when you're going up against good teams, they've struggled. They've struggled to produce. They've had slow starts, and they haven't been good on the defensive side of the ball. Okay. So when you really evaluate this team, I mean, if you're looking at from a competitive standpoint, they haven't beat the upper echelon of the league and haven't proven it.
Phil Perry and Matt Cassel. I hear you guys doing a little dance. You're coming close to saying that word. Tommy Curran, will you say the word that they're kind of saying? Like, we're talking about a fraud team?
I like them.
Are they a fraud team, Tom?
I like the team. But they were fraudulent, and we were willingly duped.
I thought the Colts and Bills games were I thought those games were exceptions. Those back-to-back losses, I thought they were exceptions. What they did today tells me that they weren't.
They're fraudulent in the notion, however, that they could have been an AFC championship team.
So they're a nice little playoff team, but not necessarily.
And that's okay. We were led down the primrose path by this team that got to the #1 overall seed. That's okay.
The book took us there.
The book took us
there. That's right. It was a good book. That book took a turn. Wait a minute. It was good beach reading for a second. Then it just turned.
Yeah, they went on vacation.
Got kind of weird.